Welcome to What the World Needs Now with hosts Tom Whisinnand and Josh Monroe. We hope that you're able to leave feeling encouraged and ready for another day of changing lives in the field of education as we speak with inspirational teachers from across the nation and world about what keeps their spark lit.
In this episode, we talk with Fletcher Nelson, a.k.a. third grade swag, a third grade teacher from Minnesota, about the importance of being part of a meaningful and purposeful community. Without any further ado, Fletcher Nelson.
Fletcher, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. For our listeners that don't have the privilege of knowing who you are, could you tell us who are you, where are you from, and what's your role in education? Kind of a little bit of your elevator pitch.
Perfect. My name is Fletcher Nelson. That is my dog, if you can hear that. Sorry. My name is Fletcher Nelson. I'm a third grade teacher in Minnesota, and this is my 8th year teaching. I taught for 2 years in North Dakota. I taught a 5th and 6th grade combo, and now I've been third grade kind of ever since. So that's about it.
I love it. Hey, tell us a little bit about the dog, because I know that you're pretty big on Instagram, YouTube, on TikTok. The dog makes an appearance here and there.
Oh, he makes an appearance almost everywhere. He's needy, but I love him. So Reggie, golden retriever, is he 3 now? Yeah. So he follows me everywhere. So right now I'm scratching him so he won't make noises. He thinks he's a lap dog. He is a lap dog, and he owns the house. So
he doesn't know he's big. He doesn't know that he's big. He
doesn't. And he doesn't get that people don't want to be licked in the face or the ear. He doesn't understand they don't want his butt in their face. So it's great.
My wife is a dog.
Getting his hair all over him. So
my wife isn't a dog person. But it seems like dogs know that. And then they want to make friends. It's like they want to go woo the person in the room who does not necessarily want them to be around. Is he the same way?
Oh yeah. And it's funny because my mom's not a dog person, but me and all my siblings, we all have dogs. But Reggie has her heart. Like, only dog she'll let on the furniture. Only dog that can sit on her lap if we're on the boat. Only dog that's ever slept in their bed. They watched him. I said, just close your door. You can put him in his kennel if you need to. And then the morning they're complaining. They're like, oh, we didn't get any sleep because Reggie was with us. I'm like, you could have closed your door. And my mom goes, well, he was so comfy. I didn't want to kick him out. I'm like,
oh, that grand dog. He's got the grand dog role.
So right away, she's like, would play it cool. Like, oh no, I love all your guys' dogs. And now she's like, yeah, he's the best. We know.
So Fletcher, tell us a little bit about how you got into education and the journey that you've been on. I know you're from Minnesota, but the journey that you've been on, because you weren't always there, to get back to Minnesota.
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to high school. I'm not one of those people who always wanted to be a teacher. My parents aren't teachers. Nobody in my family's a teacher. I never actually considered it until my senior year of high school. For a while, I thought, hey, it'd be cool to be an anesthesiologist. They make a lot of money. I want a lot of money. And then one day I was like, man, I don't even know how to spell that. So probably not going to be the best route for me. So then it just kind of moved on to, was thinking probably just something generic like business where it would open some doors. And then that's kind of what I was leaning on. In my senior year, I tried taking like 3 study halls, and my counselor's like, you can't do that. Like, you have enough credit that you can't take 3 study halls. She's like, for one of them, how about go over to the elementary? Mrs. Stokes was my friend's mom. She taught 4th grade. She's like, you can go over, help out in her classroom for an hour a day, and you'll do that instead of a study hall. So I was like, I can handle that. So that ended up being my favorite time of the day. Every day I'd go over there. The kids were so excited to see me. If I didn't come, they were wondering where I was, and just the things they said would just crack you up. And it's like, I just left there every day, and I had it like second hour, I think. So I'd go to, calculus first hour, be miserable, then go there and be like, this is fun. Life's good. And then go on with the rest of my day. So after that, I was just kind of like, maybe I could do this for the rest of my life. Maybe I should be a teacher. And yeah, so that's what I did.
I always love hearing stories from people who didn't grow up wanting to be teachers, because that's not how I was. So I enjoyed hearing about Tom's story and how he went into education. And Fletcher, I love yours. And I really want to give some kudos to the school that you attended, because it could have been easy for them to be like, well, no, you're going to go take this class. But they probably don't even know the impact that just allowing you to go into that classroom for a little bit each day and hang out with kids has done, not just for you, but for the community that you live in now.
Yeah, I was actually able to tell my counselor that like a couple of years ago, and she's like, I don't even remember saying that. I don't remember this conversation happening, but yeah, that sounds like something I would say, that you can't do that. And I was like, you did, and it worked out well. So thank you. So it's kind of cool being from a smaller town, be able to connect with her and tell her the impact she had on me and my life and the students I've had. So
That's awesome. That's so cool. Fletcher, you do a tremendous amount of work on YouTube and creating content and on other platforms. But you also create like really user-friendly things, and you don't keep it to yourself. Like you share the wealth and share your work. Talk a little bit about that, and talk a little bit about the importance of, as educators, like not hoarding our resources.
yeah, I feel like, I mean, I was told in all my college classes, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. And for me, it became easy, like when I needed something or wanting something, trying to find it online. And you could find it, what you needed some of the times, or sometimes you couldn't. And I just kind of started thinking like, okay, a lot of this stuff is people want you to pay a lot of money for it. And I get it. They took time to create it, but for one lesson spending $5, $6, $7, $10. And I'm like, for a half hour of the time, I just was like, this is a waste of my money. And yet saved me time planning it. But I'm a teacher. I don't have a lot of extra income. And so when it comes to stuff like that, creating for my class, I just was like, okay, if I put it for a few dollars and it can help them, and I'm going to make it so they can edit it for their needs, I feel like that's compensating me for my time. Because obviously, if you're going to put it out there, I want to make it outside of contract hours on my own personal device, yada, yada, yada. So that's been a good way too. And then it's just, I love trying new things with my class. So if I find a new website, learn about if I see something on TikTok and try it, like I try to share the wealth and let others know about it, because we all need things that make our lives easier and our kids engaged and making school a fun place for them.
I love that. And it's really important for us, as you said, to try new things, right? It's easy to get stuck in ruts and in our old ways. One thing that you've done recently that I love, and I think it's going to take off, I think it's going to blow up in education, is Wordle. I saw you doing that with your class. Talk about that for a second, because I watched that video. Your kids were engaged in that. They were loving it.
They love it. And I always feel bad because some of the days they ask me every day now, how many did you get it in? Because we usually have been doing it at the end of the day or before lunch if we have time. And so they ask me first, how many they get it in? Because they know if they beat me, they get like a Jolly Rancher. So that's a little bit of motivation. And so when I started that first day, I didn't help them at all. And it was just embarrassing because they actually beat me and they were just going for it, just trying these words. And then now a couple of times I've pointed out, like, not trying to make it too much of a structured lesson type thing, but if they get a couple letters, I'm like, all right, guys, think about letter combinations, think about the vowels. Like, would it make sense for that to be a long or a short vowel? And think about some words, and they're like, oh, yeah, that I see E at the end. So it's going to be that's going to be a long I, or just little things like that. So then it's going to be, I'm thinking about spelling a little bit more. But yeah, so it's just been a fun little bit of a competition because they're trying to beat me. They're working with words. And again, I feel bad some of the days because if it's a word, some of the days the wordles, I'm like, I don't even know what that word is. So I tell them that. I'm like, we might skip it today. They always want to try it anyways. And then they're like, what is that? I'm like, I don't know either. I had to Google it. So we're both in the same boat there.
That's good. You're being vulnerable with them. You don't know. You don't have all the answers,
Learn something new every day.
When I'm at home, I ask Siri. When I don't know something at school, I hit the home button and say, hey, Siri. Because that's the world we live in,
Yeah, we have that direct. We can find out instantly, and it's okay to admit that we didn't know it off the top of our head.
Yeah. So Fletcher, you've been teaching for 7 years. Has there and what 3 of them have been during a pandemic, right? Like going into it, and then the whole year of it. Now we're kind of hopefully coming out a little bit. Has there ever been a time in those 3 years or the other 4 that you've just kind of struggled, and how'd you come out of that struggle?
Before the pandemic, I feel like I was always pretty solid because I had gone a little bit of a changing schools after my first 2 years, helped keep me, new things, new people. Then after that, at my new school, I started 5th grade, then went to 3rd grade. So the grade level change, switched things up. But that first year of the pandemic, like when we went home, like teaching from home for those couple months was just hard. Like I missed the kids. I missed seeing my coworkers. So it was really exciting going back into school the next year, even though we were hybrid and masked. And so I think just kind of the excitement of being back with people helped me out then. So last year, I think I made it through pretty good. We also had Friday off. Students were distance learning, so we had time to plan and prep. This year, I feel like it's the year that's hit me. And I feel like I've gone, especially this winter, like lack of sunlight, shorter days. And I went through a little bit of a mood where I'm like, this sucks. I'm tired. My kids are behind academically from the pandemic. They're behind socially. They're behind emotionally. There's just all these things that were on us. And it just, as much as you tell yourself their last regular year of school was kindergarten, that doesn't make what we're going through now easier. And that's where it just kind of realizing and like not having the fake, like everything's awesome, this is the best job, and like just venting and talking with my coworkers about the things we've been going through and hearing that we weren't the only ones experiencing those and that we were all having a hard time, and then just trying to plan something for ourselves to look forward to helped a lot. So we did things as a grade level and just got the kids more excited, and that got us excited. And I know that's not like a very good, like, hey, how did you hit this funk? But it was literally just like, man, this sucks, let's make it not suck. And we all were miserable together. And it's not like it's perfect now either, but it's just, we kind of have started having little things as a grade level to look forward to with our kids and get them excited about. And that's kind of re-sparked that in us too, like, seeing their excitement brings excitement to us and just reminds us why we do this job.
I think you touched on some really important things, right? Like, it's important to be open and honest with the feelings that we've had through this pandemic. It has been hard. Teaching isn't easy, and the world got to see that for a little bit. But then not being stuck in that rut, and working on finding ways. One, how can I take care of myself as a teacher? Two, how can I help my students learn to love school again, right? So you're working on that self-care, not only with you and the staff, but also with your students.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's important too, like Josh and Fletcher, like you were saying, we gather people around us. I think there's a tremendous power in gathering people around us, and yes, discussing our emotions, but then having those same people lift us up and help us find new motivations, and realizing that, yeah, if we lock ourselves in our room and we wallow in our own despair, like it can be dark and it can be lonely and it can be defeating. So good for you guys, Fletcher, to gather a group and say, hey, together let's do this, together let's move past this, let's engage our kids, let's get out of this rut. That's awesome.
Fletcher, what are some of the ways, because we've got listeners that are getting ready to enter education, or that have only been in it during the pandemic, that would love to hear some of the ideas that you've got. What are some things that you're doing to keep your kids inspired and wanting to come to school?
So some of the things I was talking about that we were doing as a grade level, it's gonna, I don't know, comes off a little bit privileged because we haven't been able to do field trips. We kind of have a surplus of PTO funds like that we can choose to spend, because again, we haven't been able to do field trips. So the first thing we did was we rented out a gymnastics, like where they can go in the foam pits and stuff as a grade level. So it was like a class field trip over there since we could. And that was just a fun way to see the kids have fun with each other, play, be excited. Smaller things we've been doing is, like, every Friday we have something called Laker Time. The Lakers are mascot, and just a way to celebrate kids who get their work done, who work hard, because that's been a struggle too, getting them to come back in and be motivated. So it's a little bit of time management. Like, you have time now to finish this in school. You have time to work. If you don't finish it, you could bring it home, and then you have all week to get this stuff done. If you don't by Friday, you're going to have to work on it. And if you get all your work done, then we each kind of take a different room. So we have one person who will, if kids need to finish their homework, they can go work there. And then someone will usually go outside, one person to the gym, one person will throw in some just dances in their classroom, one will do board games, and the kids can choose where they want to go, find their friends, and just end the week on a high note, celebrating and realize, hey, they worked hard, they got their stuff done, and they should feel good about that and have some fun. So and then it's a fun way for us to connect with those kids too in other classes, because we get to play with them in the gym or see them doing the dances, and that's a good way to celebrate getting through another week. So that's a little bit smaller way to celebrate that we've been doing.
I think you have to take the time to play with kids and enjoy your job. If you're not taking that time and you're focused on parent emails or your evaluations or what standards did you check off the list, and I think you're missing a tremendous amount of enjoyment that the field of education just gives you. So that's awesome.
And I feel like there's always one more thing we could do. There's always one more thing we could teach. There's always one more thing we could have done. But You know, when it comes down to it, we got to make school a place kids actually want to be too. And taking a little bit of time to have some fun with them is just as important as getting that math lesson in, I think, some days. So
it absolutely is. I love, Tom, that you were talking about the enjoyment of our job, because it's easy to get bogged down on every hat that we're supposed to wear or every standard we're supposed to hit. But being there for our kids, isn't that truly what we're called there to do? We'll get to the lessons, but loving our job, loving our kids, and making school a place where kids want to be at and want to learn at, that's got to be that top priority that we're focusing in on.
exactly. I feel like too, then it motivates them to work that much harder when we are getting the stuff done. It's, if they're just miserable, I mean, when I'm miserable at something, I'm not paying attention, I'm not putting in my best effort, I don't want to be there. So why would I try? And that's kind of the same mindset these kids are going to have if we just try to have them sit and do, you know, teach this, do this, and just keep going through the cycle of that. It's going to be, everyone's going to be miserable.
Yeah, no, nothing good comes when everybody's miserable. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Fletcher, we've interviewed people from all over the world, a lot of different states and different countries. And we always ask kind of what is the biggest issue facing educators? And the answers are always varied based on where they are and what they're dealing with locally, statewide, what they've kind of connected with nationally. In your opinion, what are some of the biggest rocks that educators today are facing?
I think there's clearly a lot of things as a system that need to change. And that's, you know, there's a teacher shortage for a reason. And again, I love my job, but that doesn't mean there's not things that could be better for teachers and get more people to want to be teachers. And I think one of those is just going to be support from the community, from the school board, from parents, whatever it is, because, you know, you get awesome parents and that's just the best feeling when you have that support. But as we've seen with the pandemic, it turned with everyone being like, teachers, we need you. I don't know how you guys do this. Then when schools stayed shut down for safety reasons, it turned on like that we're lazy, we're not doing this, we're trying to push our agendas. And it's just, if they would set foot in a classroom, they would know that that's not the case, that we're all want what's best for our kids. And just having that support on our, when it even comes down to like behavior issues, I feel like it's so easy for them to try to put the blame on us now when something goes wrong, when we're just trying to communicate what's happening at school. And I think that just throws a lot more stress on teachers too, when they have to worry. They're worried about what how the parent's going to react when you try to communicate a concern to them. And then another big one, I just look back to my first years of teaching, and it's like, if we don't pay teachers, we're not gonna be able to keep teachers. I remember just being embarrassed of how little money I made with my other friends who were not teachers, and they wanted to go on these trips and do these things. And I was like, I will have to ask my parents for money. I just went to school for 4 years and I'm a teacher, and I'm gonna have to say, hey, mom, dad, could you help me go on this weekend trip? Because I literally have $5 after I paid all my bills to last me the next week. That's another stressor. And on top of working outside your contract hours and wanting to do these things for your kids and needing to get supplies for the ones who might not have it, and you don't have money for yourself, that's just adding more stress on to people's plates. And that's, I think, another huge reason why people are leaving after 1, 2, 3, 4 years.
Or not going into it at all. I know the school I went to for my undergrad is really struggling with specifically the high school area of mathematics. Why would you want to put in the time if you're going to make double as an entry level business person or an entry level data analyst or whatever? So yeah, I totally think that the pay thing is something that needs to be looked at, at a state level, but then also maybe at a national level.
Yeah.
Something has to be done if we want great teachers to continue to enter the field of education.
And I feel like that kind of goes back with the support thing too. I mean, if we're supported, you trust us as professionals, then it shouldn't be an issue to pay us what we deserve. And you always get those ones who are like, oh, you get the summers off, but they don't realize we're not getting paid for the summer. And most of us have to work a second job anyways. So now it goes to us not having any time off because we can't afford to take any time off. So.
Right. And when you really look at it, we usually stay a week or two after the kids get out. We come back a week or two earlier, and then we've got training and professional development scattered throughout the whole summer. Like, it's not exactly what society thinks.
Exactly.
But Fletcher, I just needed to tell you, I lived at home for my first 2 years of teaching for the exact reasons that you were talking about, like asking mom and dad for money. I'd just walk up to my mom's room and be like, hey, mom, my friends, they're going out to the pizza place. I might need some money. What do you think?
And that, if I wish I would have been closer to my parents so I could have done that, because it's like, oh yeah, then trying to pay rent and all that stuff. It's like, man, who knew
Right.
adults had to pay so much money for things? Like after, like my parents like, oh, hey, here's your car insurance. I was like, it's a funny story. I actually can't pay that. So how about give me a couple more years?
Hey, you talked about behavior too, and I think that that's a big disconnect between parents at home and teachers in the behavior part. How do we bridge that connection? Because I feel like I've been in a couple spots. One where I've had great parents, and they know my style, and they trust me. But I've had it on the other end too, where parents don't agree with things that I do, and I feel like they kind of attack me for it. They don't trust what I'm doing, what I'm saying. How do we start bridging that with society?
That's the hard part too, because I think there's so many different ways to approach things. And I think there's somewhere it's like, teaching them, like we use like the zones of regulation. And I think there's somewhere like, oh, well, that doesn't, like, they don't need to be talking about their emotions. They don't need to be doing that. But it's like, they do. Like, think how long they're like, I didn't talk about that. It's like, yeah. And think of how many of us have this internalized, just stuff we never dealt with that we just held on to. And that's not a healthy way to cope with it. So I think one thing that has helped us is having something school wide. Like we have that, the verbiage, the zones of regulation. Our counselor does lessons. They hear it in their FIAD class. Like, oh, you're in the red zone. Like what strategies can you use to help calm yourself down so you can come join this game, and like giving kids the control. And so I think then once parents start seeing it from more than just one teacher's classroom, they're seeing it the whole school, and they're hearing their kid use the language. I think sometimes I can help them understand, like, hey, if this clearly's work, they're able to communicate then, and it helps them make it a little bit easier. Still isn't perfect, but
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking about, because this year I just had a parent absolutely attack me when I started explaining to him zones of regulation and how we teach that in the classroom. They're like, my kid should know that they don't act like that. And we had to have the conversation. But what your kid is doing, his behavior is him communicating, and we have to teach that skill to him. But it was very hard to get that when people have been raised from an early age that emotions, feelings aren't something that you show the world or talk about.
And I feel like it kind of goes into too, where with how a lot of school or has been more just like compliance, like you do this, where, yeah, do I want my students to respect me? Yes. But does that mean they're never going to be mad, upset, sad, hurt? No. And being able to communicate that and put it into a way and, practice talking about that is important for them to learn how to cope with those things as they get older. And I think of it too as sometimes I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, or they're constantly blurting out or whatever it is. And I can be able to tell them, I'm like, guys, what you're doing right now is putting me into the red zone. And I don't want to go there, but you guys are impacting my zone. I know I can impact yours, but you guys can do that to me as well. So I really need us to focus on what should we be doing for each other's sake, so we can all be, in a good mood. And I think that's been another thing too, is them third grade's kind of an age when they realize, I do have an impact on how others are feeling. And if I'm acting like this, it's just disrupting their learning. It's disrupting how they're feeling. And that's another big thing that they need to realize, that they have that impact over other people. How they're acting isn't just affecting themselves.
Fletcher, I'm thrilled that you teach third grade. I teach fourth grade. And what you're saying is so spot on about them realizing my actions have an impact on other people, whether I want them to or not. And I need to start owning the fact that my actions and my emotions do create a wake, and I'm in charge of that wake, for the better, for the worse. And so that's fantastic that you're teaching that. I teach the same thing in fourth grade. So hopefully between third and fourth grade, like by the time they get to fifth grade with Josh Monroe, they're done. They got it.
Once they got you two and they get to me, we're good.
Yeah, they'll be good to go. I won't need another reminder on that ever.
No, Hey, Fletcher, we have teachers that are just brand new coming in. They might be in college still doing their student teaching or doing practicums. What advice would you have for them You've been in it 7 years. I've been in it 14. Josh has been in it a few. Like, what would you tell them?
You literally cannot do it alone. You need to find somebody who you can, like a mentor you can go to for advice. And I know a lot of schools now will give a mentor, but that isn't always the best person. You need to find someone who you're just comfortable with to go and be able to share your concerns, ask those little stupid, dumb questions that you're like, I know I should know this, but I don't. And you just don't feel embarrassed. You're comfortable with it. Asking them like, hey, this is what's happening in my class. Do you have any ideas of what I could do to make it better? People to go to for resources, so you don't have to keep trying to come up with ideas for lessons, and see what they've done and what's worked in the past, and just somebody who's done it, and not to tell you what to do, but just to give you advice and to be there to listen and be there to support you. Because if you try to just go and figure it all out on your own, you're going to burn yourself out and you're going to feel defeated, and it's going to be exhausting. And it's going to be exhausting either way, but at least here you have somebody else who you can talk to and feel exhausted with.
Oh,
Fletcher, I have to tell you, I'm thrilled that you brought up the fact that some districts give you mentors. Absolutely. Kudos to those districts that do. But I also am thrilled that you brought up the fact that maybe that's not your go-to when things are tough, when things are hard. Like I'm huge into the idea that you meet people, and we had a guest on, Patrick Kiernan, Dr. Kiernan, and said there are
meaningful coincidences.
meaningful coincidences. And I think you meet people and you make connections with people, and I think you have a meaningful coincidence and you find a mentor that matches your personality, your style, and you're comfortable with. So I'm glad you mentioned that. 100%, Fletcher.
And it makes all the difference, I think. Like, I feel like you go to a lot of these people who have been burnt out. Did they have anybody like that they could go to? Or did they feel that the mentor they had maybe was somebody who was just another person observing and critiquing them constantly? I don't know.
Yeah, that's almost how I felt, because in our district, we are given a mentor for our first couple of years. But I did feel like it was just somebody in there that was judging me almost. And what I needed was a safe person that I could be vulnerable with, right? That exactly what you were touching on, like, hey, I really blew this lesson today. What would you have done? Or here's what I'm going to teach next week. How would you do this? Here's the behavior that I'm seeing from this student. What would you do? Like, having those real conversations. And again, like you said, to keep us from getting burnt out.
And I think it's really cool too. I think back to my first couple of years, I was like I said, a 5th and 6th grade teacher, and I was the only one. So I worked a lot with the 4th grade teacher. Her name was Mary, and she was just amazing. And it was kind of cool because I would always go to her and ask her this or that. And then there came the point when she came to me and asked me, I'm like, why are you asking me? She's like, oh, well, you did this and that was cool. Like, I'm like, really? That was good. And it's just kind of cool when you see somebody else trying to ask you for ideas too. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm maybe doing okay.
Now I'm going to butcher the saying, but what is it? The apprentice becomes the master. Is that the Star Wars reference?
Don't judge me, but I don't think I've seen a Star Wars movie in quite a few years. So I'll leave now if I need to.
Well, Fletcher, at the end of every episode, we always ask, what does the world need now? Tom usually does a little bit of singing. He's been putting it on me. Great song if you haven't heard it, but back in the 60s, it was love. And things have changed since then, or maybe they haven't. So in your opinion, what do we need more of?
I feel like we just need more people to care, and not care about ourselves, to care about others. And I feel like so much is about just anything you see in the news or anything is just all about how people have their own personal opinions and they're letting it impact other well-beings and them living to be their true selves, they're who they are, who they're meant to be. And I think if we cared about others, if we cared about our students, if we cared about our parents, and if they cared about us back, it would just be a world of a different place, because we would stop taking everything so personally, and we wouldn't be so worried about what others are doing unless what they're doing is making them happy. And I don't know, I just feel like we just have learned to just care about ourselves and our own success and less on others. And I think needs to change.
I think the more you do care about other people, the focus changes 100%. It's not about you. It's not about your emotions. It's not about your needs or your wants. I care about you. What can I do for you? How can I show you that I care. Yeah. Fletcher, that's a great answer. I hope the world gets a lot more care, for sure.
I do too.
I saw this cool quote that I put out a couple days ago, but it was, to make the world a better place, you don't need to be rich, you don't need to be pretty, you don't need to be brilliant, you just need to care. And then it was Charlie Brown holding an umbrella over Snoopy as it was raining, right? Like,
Yep.
if we can be selfless in the things that we do, those small little actions make huge impacts, and we start a ripple that changes the world. I love it, Fletcher.
I feel like it goes back to what we were just saying too. Like when you learn that what you do and how you're feeling impacts others, I mean, it can be a positive thing if you realize, hey, I care about these other people and I'm going to show them. That spreads to them, and that just keeps on going, that ripple effect like you're talking about, Josh.
I think Reggie likes the answer too. I hear him down there.
He has his Frisbee and he's ready for me to throw it.
Ready to go. Hey, Fletcher, thank you so much for taking some time and inspiring us and inspiring the world with your light and energy. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was a blast to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Fletcher. Have a great night.
You guys too.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. We're so thankful and appreciative that you took your time to listen to our guest, Fletcher Nelson. Hopefully you're ready for another week of changing lives, and hopefully What the World Needs Now is helping you to sustain your inspiration as we journey through this school year. If it is, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps us to get inspirational educator stories out.
We hope that as you head out, you remember the biggest factor that plays into student success is you. Your love, your passion, your empathy, your dedication. It's exactly what the world needs now. Thanks for everything you do. Have a good one.